How can you claim and believe so powerfully that he did resurrect when there's two different sides? Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
You're totally rational. And I appreciate you talking to me that way. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Because I get really tired of chasing rabbits all around the universe, all right? You're logical, you're rational, and I thank you so much, okay? All right. You're right. People disagree. People in the first century disagree.
Evidence of eyewitness testimony to prove that the historical event did happen. Those testimonies go across multiple people, so in a sense that evidence is repeatable. Does that make sense in that aspect? Where the evidence is repeatable, and that's how, that's the argument that I'm seeing at this point.
Okay, I would not, okay, I don't agree with the use of repeatable there.
Okay.
I would say, I'm interested in multiple eyewitness testimonies, not just one, right? But I can't repeat an event from yesterday.
Yeah.
It's impossible, right? So historical knowledge has nothing to do with repeating yesterday's events. I can't do it. You can't do it. Nobody can do it, right?
Yeah.
But it's a legitimate form of knowledge. See, now here's my point. My point is, there are too many people who are making a big mistake in thinking. They're thinking, unless you can scientifically prove it, which means repeat, it's not true. Excuse me? I can know historically that Washington was first president of the United States, even though I cannot repeat that, right? I can't repeat Jesus rising from the dead. That's an historical event that occurred 2,000 years ago. I'm not going to be repeating it in some lab or over in Palestine. But it's a historical event that is verified by multiple eyewitnesses. 1 Corinthians 15, 3 through 8, the Apostle Paul writes, Christ appeared to over 500 people, most of whom are still living. You don't believe me? Go out and talk to one of them.
Okay. And so a question I have for that then is if all your historical evidence is based on eyewitness testimony or the fact that you take other people's word, what do you think about false history? About, like, let's say an example would be,
the Holocaust never occurred. I've debated a guy who insisted the Holocaust has never occurred. False history.
But what would you consider if the person who was claiming the history wasn't in the right state of mind?
Well, then we call him insane, and we wouldn't trust him.
But then how would you argue against a stance where an entire society is incorrect, where the entire society will be considered insane, and that they view the historical event as wrong?
Okay,
that it didn't
good.
happen.
There's a difference between I saw Jack yesterday on this stair versus Jack is a really screwed up guy, right? I saw Jack on this stair is a claim of an eyewitness account that I saw him. That he's a messed up guy is my evaluation of Jack.
Okay.
And then the question becomes, why have you evaluated Jack as being a messed up guy? And you see, then all of a sudden we're getting more into interpretation. A judgment of, well, Jack is mentally unbalanced, he's a messed up guy, and so then that becomes questionable.
Yeah.
So if a Japanese person tells me World War II never occurred, Japanese never bombed Pearl Harbor, I'm going to say, excuse me, sir, you're wrong. Historically, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, World War II happened. But when the Japanese person says, and I worship the emperor, I'm going to say, okay, that is your decision to worship the emperor. That is a faith position, and now we have to discuss, is the emperor worthy of your worship? That make sense?
Yes. So I have another question.
Yes.
So regarding your Japanese Pearl Harbor bombing scenario.
Right.
So let's, like, an example would be if we were to flash forward 100 years.
Yes.
And there's no one alive from that Pearl Harbor incident to claim that they saw it or that they did it.
Right.
So in this example, let's say the Japanese nation claimed that it never happened.
Right.
And the United States nation did claim it happened.
Good.
So in that scenario, it would be our word versus them. Our word versus their word.
Good.
So in that aspect, how can you prove that your word, just based on historical testimony, your word is more accurate, or that your word happened than theirs?
You bet. Great question. No way can I prove it. I can't prove to you that I was out here yesterday speaking.
Yeah.
I can't. To prove means to show it cannot be another way. Maybe there was my twin, my identical twin out here instead. Maybe there was an apparition out here. All right? So I can't prove that. But I think there's overwhelming evidence that I was out here yesterday speaking right here. Now, that is why. But I love the issue you're raising. Why? After World War II, when the Allies won, General Eisenhower asked for journalists to come from Europe, the United States, and check out Auschwitz, Buchenwald, Dachau. Why? Because Eisenhower knew that some people would insist that's just Allied propaganda, that Germans actually gassed Jews in these death camps. And so as soon as he could, Eisenhower got journalists from across Europe, from the United States, inviting them all to come immediately to check out Dachau, Auschwitz, and Buchenwald. Why? Because propaganda occurs. Lies in the form of propaganda occur. And that's why Eisenhower said, come on guys, get over here right away. I want you to verify this.
So then, with so you're saying that an event can be not, I guess, proven, but historically backed up by multiple different testimonies.
Bingo. Yes, sir.
Okay. So a question then I have. So this idea of like our word versus their word and like proving historical evidence.
Right.
I would like to take it to the New Testament with Jesus Christ
Good.
and his disciples.
I like you going there.
So a question I have is, the majority of the New Testament is written by the 12 disciples, or I'm not too familiar with the New Testament.
It's okay. No, you're right.
In my understanding, the New Testament is written by the close people to Jesus during his time.
Yes.
Right? So, although I can understand that there are multiple different testimonies from the individuals that surrounded Jesus, all of them were still his followers. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
So, I guess in that same way, it's our word versus their word, because a lot of people who did not believe in Jesus Christ did not say that he resurrected and that he did not resurrect.
They did not believe that. That's
his
right.
Disciples say they did.
Yep.
So in that aspect, it's our word versus their word.
Yes, sir.
So how can you claim and believe so powerfully that he did resurrect when there's two different sides? Does that make
Good.
sense?
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
You're totally rational. And I appreciate you talking to me that way. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Because I get really tired of chasing rabbits all around the universe, all right? You're logical, you're rational, and I thank you so much, okay? All right. You're right. People disagree. People in the first century disagree. Some people insisted, no, Jesus did not rise from the dead. Baloney. Other people insisted, no, we saw him risen from the dead. So what we've got to do is, we've got to examine the writings of those who say, we saw him risen from the dead. When you read the Gospels, what is refreshingly honest is, Peter denied knowing Christ 3 times. What a turncoat. He's one of his 12 closest buddies. Before the resurrection, Peter denies knowing Christ 3 times. After the resurrection, Peter is willing to be martyred for his faith in Christ. Wow, that's some real honesty. Thomas, one of the 12 closest followers, says to the other followers of Christ, oh, you say Jesus rose from the dead? You're nuts. Not unless I can see him with my own eyes. Not unless I can take my hands and put them in the nail prints in his hands will I believe. And one night, all the disciples are together, including Thomas, and Jesus stands among them, walks right up to Thomas and says, my man, right here, take your hands and put them in the nail prints in my hands. Take your hand and thrust it in the spear wound in my side. And Thomas stopped doubting and believed. And Thomas hits the floor and says, my Lord and my God. You see, I love the honesty of, these are not inept puppies drinking the Kool-Aid. These are Christ betrayers, Christ deniers, who ditched Christ in his biggest moment of need, but then something happened where they became so brave that they were willing to die for Christ. And what they insisted was, it was the resurrection of Christ that radically changed them. One other quick example. James, the younger brother of Christ, He didn't believe in Jesus before Christ's resurrection. Imagine how it would be for you to believe your older brother is God in human form. That's a lot to swallow. So James didn't believe in him. But in 1 Corinthians 15 we read how the risen Christ appeared to James, and James became a leader in the first century church, claiming, I saw Christ risen from the dead. Okay, now here's the final kicker for me. All of these guys who saw Christ risen from the dead stood before Roman soldiers or some other type of group of people, like Thomas in India, southern India, and these people said, the Romans said, say Caesar is Lord and live. You walk out of this prison, you're free. Or else maintain that you saw Jesus risen from the dead and we will kill you for it. Now, if you study psychology a little, you'll know that people are not going to die to cover up what they know to be a lie. They'll break and say, oh yeah, you're right, I didn't see him risen from the dead, I just made that up. All of them said, I have seen Jesus risen from the dead, he is Lord, and they died for it. Okay, the fact that they were willing to die, not for a belief. See, that's the difference between them and the kamikaze pilots. They didn't die for a belief, like the kamikaze pilots did. They died for what they claimed to have seen, the dead Christ risen from the dead. That gives their claim tremendous credibility.
So Jesus Christ, there's the example, or not the example, but let's say Jesus Christ is real and that he is the Son of God and that he did come down to die for our sins and that he is our Savior.
Right.
So why would Jesus, who is all loving, and he loves his people, all of us, because we are all the sons and children of God.
Right.
Why would he only prove his resurrection to those 15 individuals when it affects all of humanity? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Well, he appeared to over 500 people.
Okay.
All that's in 1 Corinthians 15. All right? Over 500. Now, why didn't he come up to Pontius Pilate and say, boo, it's me? Okay, I don't know why he didn't appear to Pontius Pilate. But I think it's because Pontius Pilate never exhibited a real willingness to be open to him. So, you see, it's that whole point. If you play games with God, if I play games with God, God's not going to be revealing himself very well to us because we're playing so many games. You know, it's like the little high school kid. Hey, Cliff, prove to me that God exists. I'm sorry, I can't prove to you God exists. Oh, well, I can prove to you, Cliff, that God doesn't exist. I say, really? Prove it to me. Hey, God, if you're there, when I touch this stone, strike with lightning. See, Cliff, I didn't get struck with lightning, therefore God doesn't exist. Sir, that's a game. It's a trite, simplistic game. And if someone thinks they're going to find God by playing those types of games, it ain't going to happen.
Okay. So then, another question I have would be the evidence in the Old Testament with the miracles that God produced through Moses and individuals like him, and also with Jesus Christ, the miracles he produced as well. How come the miracles stopped after Jesus Christ? Like, and for example, like now, incidences like that do not happen anymore.
Great question.
Which would be like a great evidence or proof for the existence of God.
Great question. When you read the Old Testament, read carefully. The Old Testament is not saying miracles were popping off every day all over the place. No, quite to the contrary, the Old Testament is like ESPN highlights. Okay? And what you'll notice is miracles occur around certain individuals, like Elijah and Elisha in the Old Testament, like obviously Moses. But you see, when those highlights are recorded, it's not a statement that, oh, by the way, this is happening every day, that the Red Sea is getting split open, that the earth is opening and Korah's rebellion is snuffed out as the earth collapses back on him. No, that's not saying that. It's saying here are isolated incidents. Now, when God becomes a human being in Jesus Christ, yeah, there are going to be a lot of miracles. And in the first century church, recorded in the book of Acts, there still were a lot of miracles. And there are still miracles today, I am convinced, but they happen in isolated incidences. They don't happen on a regular demand basis. Hey God, my faith is lagging. miracle, please. That'll help prop up my faith. No, he ain't going to do that. That's not the purpose of miracles, to allow us to jerk God around to get what we want.
So what would you consider is the goal of churches, the mission of churches?
Good question. The goal of churches is to help people become less self-centered and more Christ-centered by worshiping. See, worship is the opposite of narcissism. In narcissism, it's more and more all about me. Me, meet my needs, help me accomplish my agenda. It is all about me. And what church is the gathering of believers in Christ to worship God, to worship Christ. What does that mean? That means you put Christ, you put God back at the center of your life instead of being self-absorbed. Secondly, we are to grow in Christ-like character, and that involves teaching, it involves loving each other, encouraging each other, it involves accountability. Accountability. Painful word, but it's important. If I'm going to grow, I got to be held accountable. Church is also then about encouraging each other to use our unique personalities to communicate Christ to a world that desperately needs him. Church, which is the gathering together of believers, is also about meeting the physical needs of hurting people, not ripping people's cash off. Instead, generously giving so that we can meet the needs of hurting people. That's what Christian church is all about. It's not about a building, it's not about an institution, it's about people coming together to put Christ in the center, God in the center, to move myself out of the way so I can learn to love God, to love others. I do that by worshiping God and by loving people. It's all about communicating Christ to others and growing in Christ-like character. It's all about feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, visiting those who are sick and in prison, showing compassion, boots on the ground, compassion for hurting.
Worship the search. I don't understand. What does that mean? I'm agnostic. I'm pretty apathetic about believing in a God. I don't think that I can justify or prove the existence of a God, and I don't really care. I'm fine with that, and I'm not trying to find something to worship, and I'm not worshiping the search and finding a truth.
So you worship nothing?
No.
No?
I don't know. I do not know. That's my answer. I don't know.
In what sense? You're saying I don't know about a religion or atheism?
I don't know if there can be a God. I don't think that there's enough proof that there is not, nor that there's enough proof that there is. And I don't believe in that tenet that you described of worshiping the search. Let's expand on that.
Sure, exactly. So he was so adamant. He was a very sharp guy, but he was so adamant, and again, spitting angry, that I had somehow capitulated and sold out by taking a faith position. Well, no, he was not coming in apathetic. You're right. Maybe I would have changed my mind if he was coming in completely apathetic, saying, I don't care at all. I would still say he worships. But this idea that I hear sometimes around here as well, that someone who takes a religion, a faith position, is a sellout, I think is fully inconsistent. So that's what I'm getting at. But in terms of the worship piece, we've gone over this, and let's go over it again. David Foster Wallace, who wrote Infinite Jest, he died a couple years ago. When he was at Kenyon College, he gave that awesome commencement speech. I would check it out if you can on YouTube. And he talks about, he's not a Christian, he wasn't a Christian, and he talks about how if we worship anything here on earth, and we all worship something, no doubt about it, if it is finite, it will eat us alive at some point. And I've spoken with some of you already, talking about the anxiety, depression that can come from it, or severe stress that comes from an identity based on success. Getting straight A's, maybe because our parents pressure us to or not. Well, I see that in the counseling office often, but a lot of people are not aware of it. So I would say, isn't it wiser to believe in a transcendent reality to completely take that pressure off of worshiping something that is finite, which leads to all kinds of problems? What do you think?
I don't know.
Because you're right, you can remain, one type of worldview is to try and remain apathetic and detached all life long. But, we went over that one yesterday too. what happens there is you get into a type of danger zone where you're never really passionate about anything. How can a Buddhist, if you just detach, if you just step back and say, I can't have any desires, then how can you start to make great social change? Instead of saying, no, there's too much suffering, I need to step back from this, or I'm gonna get caught up into this suffering. And at the end of the day, suffering is an illusion. So why do anything to begin with? And an atheist or an agnostic can take a very similar position. So thinking about that is important.
All right, I'm not as polite as he is. I don't think you can live out your agnosticism. Convince me that you can live your life saying, I don't know. How do you do that?
I don't have to communicate that to you right now.
I know you don't.
I'm not trying to convert anybody to
I know.
That's your deal, that's not mine.
No, your deal also is a pursuit of truth. Because you've said I'm agnostic, and I think the truth is I can't know. Okay, so how do you live as an agnostic saying I don't know?
I get up in the morning, I go to university. I don't. Sorry for the fantasy, but what do you mean by that? What do you mean? How do I live?
Do you cheat, or are you honest? Do you lie, or do you tell the truth? Do you pay taxes, or do you cheat the IRS? Are you racist, or are you not racist? Do you date rape, or do you not date rape? What drives you? What's your ambition? Please don't tell me you're a student at this fine university by accident. You didn't arrive here because you don't know. If you're going to be honest with yourself and with me, you know a lot of stuff. You know that shelling out a lot of money and doing a lot of homework to get a degree from this very fine university is worth it. Please don't tell me you're agnostic.
You just said he doesn't know about the existence of God, and you're premising ethics and morals and making a better society on believing in a transcendent reality. So the question is more specific than just all this, like a generalized apathy. It's a question of, is it necessary to believe in some kind of transcendent reality in order to have ethics and morals? And I think that is not true. You don't have to believe that there's some other reality besides this one to think that we should improve this reality and have ethics and have morals and to improve society. I don't think that's, so your whole premise is false, actually.
No, you've made a big mistake. You haven't listened to me.
Believing in a transcendent
I did not say that. I did not say that. What I said was that whatever you choose to do, be it moral relativism or not, you have belief.
Now you're taking it in another direction.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
I'm saying you cannot live out an agnostic life. An agnostic is someone who says, I don't know. You can't live that out.
I don't know specifically about the existence of God.
Sure. The ethical decisions you make every day show whether you believe in God or not. What's the basis of your ethics? If the basics of your ethics is no God, that's the way that's the way you're making your decisions. If the basis of your ethics is I believe in God, then you're making your decisions. You can't live out agnosticism. You can't just sit back and say, I don't know. Sure, you can be agnostic about Coke and Pepsi, about broccoli or beans. You can be agnostic and say, I really don't know which is better. But by the way you live your life in treating people, you're saying, I value a person, I don't. Now, whatever the basis of that decision is...
You don't have to believe in the Christian God to value a person.
You don't.
You don't.
I agree, we agree.
And that's not true. You can be
but you have to believe something
without believing in a Christian God.
That's right, but you got to believe something.
But you're saying, that's what you're saying, and that's not true.
That's not what I'm saying, you're not listening.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes.
I am. Then listen, let me explain it to you. Let me explain it to you. I am saying that the ethical decisions that you make every day tackle what you believe about reality. Whatever that is. I don't care if you're atheist, agnostic, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, Christian, Jew, whatever. The ethical decisions that you make every day show what you believe. They're your values, your priorities. So you can't just kick back and say, I don't know, because you do know something. It's the basis of the way you live your life. See, that's the impossibility of agnosticism. When you take a test, are you going to cheat or you're going to do it honestly? I don't know. No, you do know. You're going to either take it honestly or you're going to cheat. Someone tells a racist joke. I don't know. Oh, yes, you do know. It's going to be shown by whether you join them in the racist joke or whether you say, no, I'm not going to tell a racist joke. You just said the F-bomb, and then you said, oh, I'm sorry. Well, what are you sorry about? Obviously, you're trying to respond to something. You have a belief. You can't just put it into neutral, guys, and coast. You don't do that. Now, that's my only point. It has nothing to do with the other argument, which you're right, I've used a lot out here, which is objective morals point to the existence of some type of God. That's not my point. My point is he says he's an agnostic, and I'm challenging him. I don't think you can live that out. Because you have to make ethical decisions every day, and whatever you believe is going to be shown in the way you make your decisions. Does that not make sense? Am I wrong?
Well, you'd have to answer that, but I think agnosticism can be specifically about the existence of God or not just I don't know anything at all. In general, in all aspects of life, that would be really hard.
Okay, fine.
You're right, it would be hard to live that, but I mean, that's not the question.
So, all right, fine, then let's go to that one. I can say, I don't know if God exists. But when I look at my ethical decisions, and when I ask myself, why do I make those ethical decisions? I either make them based on God, based on myself, based on my culture. I'm doing it for some reason. I've got some thinking behind it. So that's why to say, I don't know, no, you can't do that. You can do that with Coke or Pepsi. You can do that with beans or broccoli. But when it comes to the existence of God, because that's such a fundamental issue to how you live your life, whether there is no God or whether there's a God, you've got to decide.
Who doesn't know Christ, who he is. Like, how do you explain to someone who has no faith how to have faith?
Good question.
How do you tell someone that God is present today?
You bet. My first attempt is to convince a person that we all have faith. The person who says, I do not have faith, is self-deceiving. What does that mean?
Lies to himself.
Yeah, lies to himself, exactly. Now, why would you say that, Cliff? Because all of us are living for someone or something that none of us can prove is true. It's that simple. All of us are living for someone or something that none of us can prove is true, which means we all have faith. We all are trusting. A materialist is someone who has faith that the purpose of their life is the biggest stock portfolio possible, the biggest bank account possible. That's the purpose of my life. The hedonist is someone who says, the purpose of my life is to stimulate my nerve endings, to experience pleasure. The rationalist is someone who says, I trust my rational mind ultimately. That's where my faith is. Here's one of the biggest jokes. Cliff, unless you can prove something scientifically, it's not true. Do you know how stupid that is? All you got to do is say, really? Please scientifically prove to me that unless I can prove something scientifically, it's not true. You see, the whole belief that science is the bottom line is what I've got to live for. It's the only way to truth. Give me a break. What was it like to go on your last scientific date? What's it like to have a family that's based on science? I'll tell you what it's like. It's empty, hollow, and very lonely. You see, sir, we all have faith. The question then is, what are you living for? Who are you living for? And secondly, what is the evidence that whatever it is you're living for is true? Does that make any sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we all have faith. Every atheist, agnostic, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jew, we all have faith. Meaning by that, all of us are living for something or someone that none of us can prove is true. Okay, that's the first point. Now, the second point is, come on, man, think. What are you living for? And guess what? The majority of people in our culture ain't thinking through that question. And it's scary. I'll never forget speaking at Columbia University in New York City. And I was invited to speak in a humanities class with a professor who was doing postdoc work from Oxford University in England. And the discussion in this humanities class was the difference between Zwingli and Calvin's view of war. And it was an intellectually stimulating discussion, to put it mildly. So after the class, I'm walking out with this guy. I mean, he's in his late 20s. He's brilliant. I mean, the guy's off the charts brilliant. And I turn to him and I say, that was an incredible class, sir. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for inviting me to be part of it. Now let me ask you, what are you living for? And what's the evidence that what you are living for is true? And this brilliant guy looks me right in the face and says, please do not ask me those two questions. I am unable to answer you. Sir, that's embarrassing. That is really embarrassing. So I would encourage you to challenge people who claim to be thinking human beings to ask themselves the question, what am I living for? And what's the evidence that what I am living for is true? Now, next point is, if anybody says to you, I'm not living for anything, you have to look them in the face and say, sir, you're lying to yourself and you're lying to me. You're a motivated person. You don't dress the way you do. You're not a student here at this fine university by accident. You're putting out a lot of money and a lot of work to get a diploma here. You are living for something or someone. Now you better examine your life and ask yourself, what is my faith in? What's the object of my faith? Okay, and then the final point is, here's why I have put my faith in Jesus Christ. Because the historical evidence of the way he lived, taught, died, and rose from the dead is, he is reliable. You can trust him, sir, far more than you can trust a stock portfolio and a large bank account. Then you can trust your nerve endings to excite you. Then you can trust your rational mind to always give you the right answer. And on and on. And yes, Jesus Christ is far more reliable than the avatars of Hinduism, Muhammad, Siddhartha Gautama Buddha. Now, I respect all of those people. But when it comes to who is God, what's the way to know God, and what's the way to heaven, no, Muhammad is wrong, I'm convinced. And there's not sufficient evidence to support him being trustworthy. But the evidence to support Jesus Christ is off the charts incredible. That's why you'd be wise to put your faith in Jesus Christ.